Hey, fourth graders, today we're going to read The Wolves and the Walls. Have you ever heard strange or scary noises at home? The book we're reading today is Wolves in the Wall by Neil Gaiman. It's about a girl named Lucy who hears noises in the walls of her house and is convinced there are wolves living there. Let's find out how Lucy deals with her suspicion. Lucy walked around the house. Inside her house, everything was quiet. Her mother was putting homemade jam into pots. Her father was out at his job playing the tuba. Her brother was in the living room playing video games. Lucy heard noises. The noises were coming from inside the walls. There were hustling noises and bustling noises. There were crinkling noises and crackling noises. There were sneaking, creeping, crumbling noises. Lucy knew what kinds of things make noises like that in the walls. The big old house. And she went and told her mother. "There are wolves in the walls," Lucy said to her mother. "I can hear them." "No," said her mother. "There are no wolves in the wall. You must be hearing mice, I suppose." "Wolves," said Lucy. "I'm sure it's not wolves," said her mother. "For you know what they say. If the wolves come out of the walls, then it's all over." "What's all over?" asked Lucy. "It," said her mother. "Everybody knows that." Lucy picked up her pig puppet doll, which she'd had since she was a little baby. "I don't think it sounds like mice," she said to her pig puppet. In the middle of the night, when everything was still, she heard clawing and gnawing and nibbling and squabbling. She could hear the wolves in the walls plotting their wolfish plots, hatching their wolfish schemes. There's an element of suspense created in the first couple pages of the book. The author and the illustrator created a suspense. How did they create this suspense? What did they do? In the day, Lucy felt eyes upon her, watching her from the cracks and from the holes in the walls. They peeped through the eyes and paintings. She went to talk to her father. "There are wolves in the walls," she told him. "I don't think there are, Papa," he told her. "You have an overactive imagination. Perhaps the noises are from all the rats. Sometimes you get rats in big old houses like this." "It's wolves," said Lucy. "I can feel them in my tummy. And Pig Puppet thinks it's wolves as well." "Well, you can tell your puppet," began her father. And then he said, "Why am I asking you to tell her anything? She's just a puppet." Lucy patted her pig puppet's head so she wouldn't get offended. "Anyways, you know what they say about wolves," said her father. "If the wolves come out of the wall, it's all over." "Who says that?" asked Lucy. "People. Everybody. You know," said her father. And he went back to practicing his tuba. She was drawing a picture when she heard the noises again. The scrambling, rambling, rustling in the walls. "There are wolves in the walls," she told her brother. "Bats," he said. Look at the little cut over here. See the crack there. "You think it's bats?" she asked. "No," he said. "I think you are." And he laughed for a long time at his own joke, although it had not been a particularly good one. "I am not bats," said Lucy. "I am telling you there are wolves in the walls. Firstly, there are no wolves in this part of the world," he told her. "Secondly, wolves don't live in walls, only mice and rats and bats and things. Thirdly, if the wolves come out of the wall, it's all over. Who says that? Asked Lucy. Mr. Wilson at my school, said her brother. He teaches about wolves and things. And how does he know? Asked Lucy. Everyone knows, said her brother, and he went back to doing his homework. The next day, the noises were louder. We have to do something about the mice, said her mother. Pesky rats, said her father. I'll call someone about it in the morning. It's bats, I know it's bats, said her brother happily. I shall ensure that I sleep with my neck exposed tonight in case one of them is a vampire bat. Then if he bites me, I will be able to fly and sleep in a coffin and never have to go to school in the daytime. But Lucy did not think it was mice or rats or bats. She shook her head at this sad display of ignorance. Then she cleaned her teeth and she kissed her mother and father, and she took herself off to her bed. The old house made no noises that night. I don't like it, Lucy told her pig puppet. It's too quiet. But soon enough, she closed her eyes and she was fast asleep. In the middle of the night, there was howling and yowling and bumping and thumping and the wolves came out of the walls. You know what's going to happen. Her whole family kept saying, if the wolves come out of the wall, it's all over. So is it all over? Oh no, shouted Lucy's mother. The wolves are coming out of the walls, shouted Lucy's father, picking up and running down the stairs with her and his best tuba in his arms. It's all over, shouted her brother as he fled down the stairs beside them. The family went out the back door and into the garden. They huddled at the bottom of the garden. That night, the lights were on in every room of their house. Back in the house, they knew the wolves were watching their television and eating their food in the family's pantry and dancing wolfish dances up the stairs and down again. There they are at the bottom. We should go live in the Arctic Circle, said Lucy's father, where the houses are made of walls of ice and snow and there's nothing but polar bears and seals for hundreds of miles. When the wolves come out of the wall, there's nothing else you can do, said Lucy. We must go live in the Sahara Desert, said her mother, where the walls are colored tent silks, then they flap in the hot wind and there's nothing but camels and desert foxes for thousands of miles. Bleh, said Lucy. I think we should go live in outer space, said her brother. We could live in the orbiting space station with metal walls and lights on them that blink and flash and nothing but fazoozles and squawks for millions of miles. But what are fazoozles? Said Lucy. Outer space things, he told her. They have lots of legs, except for the squawks, who have no legs at all, but they're friendly enough. I don't want to live anywhere that isn't my house, said Lucy. And I've left my pig puppet behind. We can get a new one wherever we're going, said her mother. Now let's try to go to sleep. It was chilly at the bottom of the garden, and Lucy missed her pig puppet. She'll be all alone in that house with the wolves, she thought. They could be so dreadful. So Lucy crept back up the garden quieter than a mouse and slipped back up the back steps and through the back door and into the house. Lucy was standing there in the little hall at the back of the house when she heard some wolves coming down the stairs. They'd been eating jam and toast in front of the television and were coming back for more. Where could she go? What could she do? Quick as a flick of the wing of a bat, Lucy slipped into the wall and crept through the house on the inside, through the downstairs, up the middle, and into the wall of her bedroom. What do you think about her decision to go back into the house? Good one? Let's see. There was a huge wolf, fat as anything, asleep on her bed. He was wearing her socks, 2 on his back paws, 1 on his ear, and 1 on the tip of his tail. And he was snoring very loudly. Lucy pushed open the picture that hung over her bed, and she climbed down carefully, quietly, and she picked up her pig puppet from the floor and gave her a hug. Snorkel, snark, snored the wolf, fast asleep. Quiet as a shadow, Lucy climbed up to the top of her old dollhouse, and from there to the top of the chest of drawers, and from there to the mantelpiece, and behind the picture, back into the wall. It's kind of nice in the walls, she thought. I was worried sick about you, she told her pig puppet, and then she squeezed her very tightly. Through the walls crept Lucy and back into the garden. Where have you been? They asked her. I had to go get my pig puppet, she told them. I told you I would have bought you a new one, said her mother. One that was pink and new and not going gray. That is why I went back to get my pig puppet, said Lucy, and she went back to sleep, cuddling her pig. The next morning, Lucy's mother went to work, and Lucy's brother went to school, and Lucy and her father sat down at the bottom of the garden. He practiced his tuba and read travel brochures. We could go live in a deserted island, her father told them all that evening over a dinner of hamburgers and french fries and little apple pies with astonishingly hot middles, which Lucy's mother had brought for them when she got back from work. We could live in a grass hut with grass walls on an island in the middle of the sea, with nothing but goats on the island and nothing but fish in the sea. We could live in a hot air balloon, said her mother. We could live in a tree house at the top of a very tall tree, said her brother. Or we could go back and live in our house again, said Lucy. What? Said her father. What? Said her mother. What? Said her brother. What? Said the Queen of Malaysia, who had dropped by to help them with the gardening. Well, said Lucy, there's a lot of space in the walls of the house, and at least it isn't so cold there. What about the wolves? Asked her father. They are in the house, said Lucy, not the walls. Lucy's mother and father and brother grumbled and frowned. Still, none of them wanted to spend another night sleeping at the bottom of the garden. They tried sleeping in the shed, but it smelled too much of lawnmowers and of the fertilizer used for the rhubarb. So they crept up the back steps, through the back door, into the back hall, and into the walls. You must be very quiet, said Lucy. But the wolves were making so much noise that you could not have heard anything. The family crept through the walls of the house peeking out through the eye holes of paintings and through the cracks of things. I wonder what the wolves have been up to while the family has been back in the garden. Let's see. There were wolves watching television and eating popcorn. They had turned the television up as loud as it would go. And they had spilled popcorn all over the floor, where it stuck to the unfinished slices of toast and jam. There were wolves dashing up the stairs. There were wolves sliding down the banister. Some of the wolves had put on the family's nicest clothes, and they had made big holes in the back for them and for their tails. The family went to sleep in the walls. In the middle of the night, something woke them up. The wolves were having a party. They were singing and dancing and telling jokes. One of the wolves was playing her brother's video game and was beating all the high scores. Two of the youngest of the pack of wolves had gotten into the pots of Lucy's mother's homemade jam and were eating it straight from the pot and smearing it onto the walls. The biggest, fattest wolf of all was playing an old wolf melody on Lucy's father's second best tuba. My jam, my walls, said Lucy's mother. My video game high scores, said Lucy's father. My second best tuba, said Lucy's father. Right, I've had enough. There wasn't much in the space between the walls, just an old broken chair. Lucy picked up a chair leg. You know, I've had just about as much as I can take of these wolves too, said her father and her mother and her brother. Each of the family picked up a broken chair leg. Ready? Said her mother. Ready, said everyone else. And howled the wolves. The people have come out of the walls. And when the people come out of the walls, shouted the biggest, fattest wolf, flinging aside the tuba, it's all over. Round and around they ran, gathering up their most treasured possessions. Flee, they shouted, flee, flee, flee. For once the people came out of the walls. It's all over. Down the stairs went the wolf, scurrying and hurrying and tumbling over each other in their hurry to get out of the house and get away. Whose idea was this anyways? Moaned one of the wolves. And the wolves ran and they ran and they ran and they ran and they didn't stop running until they got somewhere where they would never be with any people in walls who would come out in the middle of the night whooping and singing people's songs and banishing chair legs. And whether they went to the Arctic or to the desert or outer space or somewhere else entirely, nobody knows. But from that day to this, those wolves have never again been seen. It took the family several days of cleaning to make the house look anything like it did before the wolves came out of the walls. But eventually, everything was back the way it had been before, except for Lucy's father's second best tuba, which had sustained severe jam damage. So Lucy's father sold his second best tuba and bought a sousaphone instead, which he'd always wanted. And everything went back to normal. Until Lucy noticed something funny. She heard rustling and scratchings and squeezings and creakings in the old house. And then one night, she heard a noise that sounded exactly like an elephant trying not to sneeze. She went and got her pig puppet. "Do you think I should tell them," she said, "that we have elephants living in the walls of our house?" "I'm sure they'll find out soon enough," said the pig puppet. And they did. So I'm going to put these questions on the next slide, but what do you think about the ending of this story? If the story was going to continue, where do you think it would go next? This is in the genre of fantasy. Why would you call this story a fantasy? What parts could not be real and what parts could be real? And what kind of learning can we get from this story, even though it's a fantasy? I hope you enjoyed Wolves in the Wall.